Hello and welcome to day 21 of the war with Iran. I'm Joshua Swanson here in Jerusalem with our senior Middle East correspondent, Julie Stahl. Julie and I, as with always, every show, we will be praying at the end. And right off the top, I wanted to remind you that you can comment below with your questions and your prayer requests. And Julie, this one came in, so we're going to be praying for Michelle. She's asking us, and specifically you, to pray for her grandson, Braden, who just got saved in church yesterday.
Wow.
How special is that?
That's really special.
Well, viewers from all over the world are watching. Also, comment below with your location and where you're watching from. That always helps us understand our audience better. So we'll be joined today by Shosh Bedrosian. She is the spokesperson for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office. She's got the latest on what's happening in the Prime Minister's office, which is a pretty busy office right now. We'll also go live to Paul Petit in central Israel near Tel Aviv, unfortunately at the site of another missile strike that happened just this afternoon, about an hour and a half ago. So miraculously though, damage throughout Israel has been pretty minimal, considering the volume of attacks from Iran and Hezbollah, and we will unpack all of that. And again, a reminder, please follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Comment below with your questions. And right now, we're going to head to our news desk for the latest news. Here in the Middle East, signs are emerging that pressure on Iran is no longer coming from the outside alone. The Wall Street Journal reports some ordinary Iranians are now quietly assisting Israel, providing intelligence on regime leaders and their movements. At the same time, security forces inside the country appear increasingly strained, with reports of some Basij units on the run. That comes as Israel escalates its campaign, eliminating key Iranian officials with precision strikes. In recent days, several high-ranking figures have been killed, in part due to intelligence gathered from within Iran itself. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the campaign is already delivering results.
We are winning, and Iran is being decimated. In Rising Line, we destroyed missiles, and we destroyed a lot of the nuclear infrastructure. But what we're destroying now are the factories that produce the components to make these missiles and to make the nuclear weapons.
Netanyahu says Israel is now shifting from disrupting Iran's capabilities to dismantling them completely.
After 20 days, I can tell you Iran today has no capability to enrich uranium and no capability to produce ballistic missiles. We will continue dismantling these capabilities down to dust, to ashes.
However, Iran is pushing back on those claims, with an Islamic Revolutionary Guard spokesman insisting the country is still producing missiles even under wartime conditions and signaling the fight is far from over. That message was underscored overnight as Iran launched multiple missile salvos toward Israel, highlighting a gap between Israel's assessment and Iran's actions on the ground. Meanwhile, the United States is reportedly deploying some of its most advanced bunker-busting bombs against deeply buried Iranian targets, including fortified missile infrastructure along the Persian Gulf. Designed to penetrate reinforced underground facilities before detonating, these weapons are capable of striking sites once considered out of reach, including missile silos, command centers, and suspected nuclear infrastructure. U.S. Central Command reports the scale of the campaign continues to grow, with more than 7,800 targets struck, over 8,000 combat flights flown, and at least 120 Iranian vessels damaged. In a separate development, a U.S. F-35 fighter jet was forced to make an emergency landing after a combat mission over Iran. While the pilot is safe, reports suggest this may mark the first time a U.S. fighter was struck by enemy fire. Beyond the battlefield against Iran, U.S. investigators are expanding a probe into UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, examining alleged ties between employees and Hamas, including possible connections to the October 7th attacks. The New York Post reports a U.S. diplomat says more than 100 individuals are now under investigation, with 14 already identified as having affiliations with Hamas. The growing probe is raising renewed concerns in Washington and Jerusalem about oversight within the agency and whether international aid resources were exploited by terrorist networks operating in Gaza. I want to welcome in Shosh Bedrosian. She's the spokeswoman for the Office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, specializing in foreign media. As a reminder to our viewers, you can comment below with your questions for Shosh. First, Shosh, let's get the really important business out of the way. Could you please show me your hands and count the fingers? I just want to make sure that you have...
We're all here. All fingers are here on my hand as well. In addition, of course, to the Prime Minister. He made that clear last night at the press conference.
Good. We've got that cleared up. Shosh, what was it like running comms during a wild firestorm like that? I mean, crazy allegations that the Prime Minister was assassinated. How did you handle that?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely outrageous. It's been like that since the start of Operation Roaring Lion. The Prime Minister has done a few statements and some press conferences now, and journalists were actually at our press conference last night and were able to see the Prime Minister for himself, interact with him, ask him questions, and they saw just how great not only is the Prime Minister doing, but how our campaign in Iran is doing as well.
Great. In your view, how effective have your enemies been at convincing the general public of misinformation and lies about Israel?
Well, we're always dealing with misinformation campaigns against us, whether it's in Gaza, after Hamas stormed our southern border on October 7th, massacring our people. When it comes to our hostages, what they endured, so many people around the world have actually tried to discredit what our people, Jewish people, in addition to anyone who lives here, no matter what your religion is, discredit your experience in this beautiful country that we call home. And specifically back to our hostages, I mean, our hostages went through absolute hell. And the abuse, the sexual abuse, the torture, the starvation campaigns that they actually endured themselves. So much speculation online, refusing to actually see the facts. We've been dealing with it from the beginning. So when it comes to misinformation, this is nothing new, but we fight it because we speak the truth, we share the truth, and that's who we are.
That's right. Shosh, I wanted to ask about the Prime Minister's reference yesterday to historian Will Durant in his press conference. So this has been taken to mean a lot of different things already on social networks. The quote is, "History proves that unfortunately and unhappily, Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan, because if you are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough, evil will overcome good." What did he mean?
Sure. So the Prime Minister actually commented this on X after this stir of misinformation that came out about this, calling it fake news about his attitude towards Christians who are protected and they flourish here in the state of Israel. And he made it clear he did not denigrate Jesus Christ at his news conference last night. No offense was taken at all, but he was citing this incredible American historian, Will Durant. There is no prime minister in the world, especially here in the Middle East, who is as devoted of a friend to the Christian community as Prime Minister Netanyahu. Not only does he defend the Christian community, he protects freedom of religion. You and I both know that Christians flourish here in the land of Israel. We protect Christian rights. It is so critical for us to do that. We are partners with Christians, and we stand up to them when they are persecuted.
That's great, Shosh. Yeah, that's true. No other nation in the Middle East has a growing Christian population outside of Israel. Another question would be, of course, the million-dollar question. How long does this go on? What is your sense, based on what you're hearing in briefings about the military campaign and Prime Minister's resolve to finish this all the way? What are we looking at in terms of a time frame?
So that's the question everyone keeps asking. And Prime Minister Netanyahu said that this could take some time. It might not be as long as people think. This could end quicker than people actually think. That's because we are absolutely battering the Ayatollah regime in Iran. Crushing them, we are destroying them in all capacities when it comes to leadership. Actually, just today, Joshua, the IDF actually announced that their head of intelligence was eliminated. This was a man who played a central role in just advancing and executing attacks carried out by their besieged forces, which we eliminated one of their commanders the other day. So we are absolutely destroying their facilities that pose an immediate threat to the state of Israel, ballistic nuclear capabilities in any capacity. I believe 70% of their rocket missile launchers have been neutralized by the IDF. And you know very well, Joshua, here in Israel, We are undergoing attacks every single day. Here in central Israel, where I'm actually located, we had about 6 or 7 alerts go off just in 7 a.m. and it's about 3:50 here right now. So this is happening all day, but we're continuing to pound back and destroy this Ayatollah regime that only wants one thing, to annihilate the state of Israel and the United States.
That is true. That is their stated goal. I'm going to go to some questions here, Shosh. This comes from Gearhammer915. That's an interesting handle. That's a good question, though. Do most people in Israel feel more unified and safer now with the attacks against the Iranian leadership?
That's such a great question. I'll tell you why. Israeli people and Jewish people across the world and anyone else who lives in this absolutely incredible country, the Jewish state. I'll tell you something. We are so united and standing behind Operation Roaring Lion. For 47 years, the state of Israel has been under attack by this Ayatollah regime. They have developed multiple terror proxies that surround the state of Israel. I always tell people there's no coincidence that 3 terror proxies surround the state of Israel. It's designed that way by the Ayatollah regime. We have Hezbollah in the north. We have Hamas in Gaza in the south, and we have the Houthis in Yemen who also pose a threat. All 3 of these proxies, Joshua, as you know, these are terror proxies that are propped up by the Ayatollah regime in Iran. They're funded. They are trained by them as well. And their goal, of course, is to annihilate us. So when it comes to taking out the head of the snake, the head of the snake that funds all of this terror that's around us, we are united and we stand behind the Prime Minister because this is a campaign that could usher in an peace we have never seen before in the Middle East.
Shosh Bedrosian, spokeswoman for the Prime Minister, thank you for joining us.
Joshua, I appreciate it.
All right, let's go to Middle East correspondent Paul Petit. He is live in central Israel at a missile strike location. Let's see if we can bring him in. Paul, are you there? All right, looks like we're waiting on Paul to come in. While we're waiting on Paul, Julie Shosh's, can you imagine being in her shoes when they're questioning the number of fingers the Prime Minister has?
I cannot imagine it. The whole thing is just like, doesn't anybody use their brain anymore?
Well, and the concept that he had to make several videos and then appearances to prove to the reporters and to the rest of the world that he was alive.
I know, it's crazy, and they're like, there's no news about it. I mean, if anybody knows Israel, they know that, like,
how about now?
You know, information here, like, goes way faster than the media does.
Right.
Like, if the Prime Minister was assassinated, everybody would have known it before it went on the news.
Of course.
I mean, Israel is like one big family, and they just, the information flows really fast.
Well, and I remember that day that the rumor came out. Chris and I were doing a live, I think it was a Sunday, and we just called Shosh and her team, and they were like, yeah, we had a meeting with them this morning. Like, what is this? You know?
Yeah.
But that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
Looks like we have a comment that came in, or guys in the booth, let me know when Paul is ready. Oh, Paul's ready. Okay, we'll
right.
come to the comment later because this is an important breaking situation here. Let's bring in Paul Petit from Central Israel. Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Live TV, right? Sometimes audio works, sometimes picture works, sometimes it doesn't, and that's what we're up against. But we're here in Rehovot, which is the site of the latest missile strikes. I'll have Cheryl, a videographer, kind of show you what's going on here. A lot of the emergency crews have cleared out now. You can see where those flags are, the Star of David flags, and above that, you can see the destruction from these latest missile strikes. From what we understand right now, and again, this all happened in the last hour, a very fluid situation around ballistic missiles hit here. We're about roughly 12 miles outside Tel Aviv. This area is known as the City of Science, with a population of about 170,000 residents. But there were 8 different impact sites here from a ballistic missile that apparently broke apart. In all, 2 injuries. One scene, 7 people were lightly hurt. A lot of it had to do with smoke inhalation, not actually the damage. And you can see some of the damage here, both to that home and then the tile roof that is adjacent to it. And then at another scene, 1 person was lightly hurt. So, you know, that's the good part about what came out here, because it certainly could have been a lot worse in these situations where these ballistic missiles and these cluster bombs have been going on constantly. Now, real quick, I want to bring in the neighbor, Mayan here, who actually lives right across from where this is all happening. Mayan, you live where?
Here, on the corner.
Right there.
Over here.
Okay, so what did you hear Take us through what happened.
All right. We basically went, me and my oldest son, went to the shelter, closed the door, waiting. Then we heard a big boom. I got a call about 60 seconds after that from someone here in emergency. Told me that it just close to my house, there is an impact. I opened the door, went out, went into the house.
You went into that house?
Into the house. I'm the first one.
You know them then?
Yeah, I know them.
Okay.
Neighbors, of course.
Of course.
We are neighbors.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Everyone's a neighbor,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I saw them, about 15 people in the shelters, opened the door. I helped them go in the back of the house because over here in the front, everything was falling apart and on fire. So they couldn't go out. So I told them go around here, out. But this is just small. If it was one of the...
Just one of 8. Yeah, they said there was 8 total.
Yeah, but this is just a fraction of from the missile. It's not actually the bomb. Small ones.
That's scary because one fraction of it did that kind of damage.
Right, just a fraction of it.
Yeah.
And it's not without any explosive in it. Just a piece of metal, big one, went in. If it was one of the small ones, it would be much worse.
I showed you how dangerous it is. Now, for this to be hitting so close to... Yeah, and this is the neighborhood.
Yeah, just, people cooking for Saturday,
for Shabbat.
Kids, going to the playground and back. Great.
So what goes through your mind when that happens? I mean, like you said, this is a neighborhood and you're being attacked. Okay, you're not a soldier, right? You don't fly a fighter jet. You're just having a quiet afternoon. So what goes through your mind when this stuff is happening now in your own backyard?
Sadly to say, we are used to it. Sadly to say, we are used to it. There are people in the world that they don't care about what they are doing. Their investment is in bad, doing bad, investing in bad, doing harm. Just, I don't know why they are not just building canyons and shopping malls and upgrading roads and whatever. Just living. And they are not doing that.
Not doing that.
What they want is to kill, hate, and put bad into this world. There is the bad and there is the good. There is the light and there is the dark. And we are in the light side of it. We just need more people in the light side of it.
Well said. Well said. Mayan, thanks so much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you very much.
God bless you. Be safe. And Shabbat Shalom to you. Okay. So again, here you heard from Mayan, lived in that house right there, and literally heard this crash happen right over here. And again, to go over it, 8 impact sites totally throughout Rehovot. 2 injuries, 7 people injured, lightly though, and that's the good part. And really, it's astonishing, Joshua, when you think about it, the amount of destruction, the amount of missiles that have come our way, and people somehow escape in safety. Hasn't happened all the time. There's been 20 deaths so far, latest count, but by and large, people stay safe because of the Iron Dome. It makes a huge difference.
Wow.
Back
Paul,
to you.
You said his name was Mayan? Is that right?
Mayan, yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to write that down. We'll definitely pray for Mayan and his family at the end of the show. Paul, it's just incredible. This is obviously a cluster bomb. Yeah, this is obviously a cluster bomb. I mean, again, a cluster bomb shot into a civilian area. Go ahead.
They were saying it was actually a ballistic missile they're saying it was a ballistic missile that broke apart.
Okay.
So we'll have to confirm that later, but that's the latest information that we have. Regardless, just a particle of a ballistic missile, just a particle, caused that kind of destruction where that entire house was on fire. And what's really cool here, and I have to say this personally, is the flags. They set them up almost immediately. Those Star of David flags were not there just 5 minutes ago. The crews cleared out. The emergency crews were here. They put these flags in, and they almost mark it as a place, I would say, of honor and perhaps of defiance that the war that's going on now, the missiles that are being fired at them, it's not going to affect them. And as you heard from Mayan himself, it's not going to stop their resolve.
That's right. Paul, zooming out, give us a sense, your sense at least, of where this war is at. Is it over sooner than later, or are we on track, or what is your sense from there on the ground?
Maybe there's some cautious hope here, I think is the best way to put it, Joshua. No real expectation at this point. And that hope comes from optimism that's rising within the security circles of the IDF. It stems from the elimination just this week of top commanders, the besieged commander, as well as obviously on day one of this entire war, taking out the Ayatollah in Iran. So, reports are that it sent the regime sort of in a state of paranoia, if you will. There's actually photos out there showing some of the top officials now sleeping in their cars outside. Their headquarters have been blown up in mosques, hopefully that they won't be a target. So this hope is going on for an internal collapse, and that's where we're at right now. And just yesterday, as you mentioned, Prime Minister Netanyahu said there's still more work to do. So this is far from over, and that could include ground troops. We'll have to see what that looks like. So bottom line here, while there's hope for a shorter conflict, as the Prime Minister said, more work to be done.
So, Paul,
Josh?
we are hearing that Iran is getting weaker. Have there actually been fewer Iranian attacks on Israel in recent days, or what are the stats on that?
Yeah, you wouldn't think by last night, right? We're all trying to sleep, and then, literally between 10:45 and noon, we had 4 or 5 different alarms. I lost count. So, but as far as numbers go, Iran launched roughly 390 missiles, more than 600 drones in a single day. This is information coming from the David Institute for Security Policy, and it was updated just yesterday. And you can take a look at these numbers if you put them on the screen. And they're targeting not just Israel, but also the UAE, as we know, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, others. Still, Israel remains the primary focus as it did here today. And now compare that to yesterday, about 105 missiles, 14 drones. So the data does show a significant drop, but, on the ground here, it doesn't necessarily feel that way. As I said earlier, overnight, what we heard in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv is just ongoing. And of course, up north with Hezbollah, that's a whole nother matter. And then Haifa got hit too with some shrapnel, caused a big mess up there over at the refinery. So while Iran may be weakening, and that's what we hope, the threat's still very real, keeping people on edge, and in some cases injuries, as we saw here today. And in the case just last night, more loss of life.
Yeah, let's keep that graphic up, guys, or put that graphic back up. I think that's what Paul was referring to. You can kind of see the sliding scale. Yeah. Paul, you were saying something like 600 and 300, so it looks like 600 plus drones and 300 plus missiles on the first day. That's 1,000 ordinances, right, shot at Israel or shot at the Middle East, and now we're down to just over 100 missiles, which is still a lot, and then a handful of drones. But that just shows you at least there is progress being made. But we asked Shosh this question, and I wanted to get your perspective as well about the Israeli public. You're out on the streets talking to people. Do they support the war effort still, or are they ready for this to be done?
Yeah, I would say Exhibit 1 is Mayan. I just spoke to him, 2 minutes ago, and he says, this is literally light and darkness. What side are you on? We want people to be on the side of light. And I'm hearing that everywhere I go. The resolve, the resiliency of the Israeli people, the Jewish people, it's everywhere around here. So I'd say, yeah, it's a resounding yes. We're seeing a remarkable support for what's going on in the war. And that's despite the sirens, despite all those numbers you talked about with all the missiles flying around. And get this poll, I want to read this to you. Israel Democracy Institute, they're called IDI, they took this last month, showed that the overall support for Operation Roaring Lion at 80%. That's a huge number. And keep in mind, there's a sense, as crazy as it sounds, that life goes on and normally. I mean, as a matter of fact, I was in a shelter yesterday, an entire wedding party came into the shelter when the sirens went off, and they were having a wedding, and they had to go back out to finish the wedding. It doesn't stop them. I was at that location yesterday by the mill, the windmill there in Jerusalem, and there was a couple that he just proposed to his soon-to-be wife. So all this is happening in real time. It doesn't stop them one iota. One more thing I want to add real quick here, Joshua. I was reading a poll today that says that when it comes to enjoying life, Israel ranks 8th in the entire globe for quality of life. In other words, they enjoy their lives here, 8th in the world, with Finland, I believe, being number 1. The United States down at 23.
Paul, I'm gonna have to.
If that doesn't give you an idea.
Yeah, Paul, sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off. It looks
I'm hearing
like
the sirens too. Yes, sir.
Yep, you're hearing it too. So I want to make sure that you take shelter. So go ahead, Paul. The region that Paul is in, and the team is a lot more active than where we are here at Jerusalem. So we want to get them off camera and to a shelter right away. Wow, the resilience. 80% of the country is still like, hey, we're in this thing, and we're in it till the end.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, and I think because they realize there's a reality to it. You know, I mean, we're looking at the war in the last few years and everything, but really, you know, all the terror groups that have been fighting against Israel for decades, who are they sponsored by? Iran.
That's right.
I mean, I think it's finally just coming clear who's been behind them.
That's true. Guys, we still got Paul in our ear. It sounds like they're headed to a shelter, which is great. But if you could cut that off, and then guys in the booth, if you want to let us know how you want to handle this, if we get sirens, if you want us to jump out, we will. And Julie, obviously you can as well.
Yeah, this was a pre-alert.
This was a pre-alert. So why don't you explain to the audience what's going on?
Well, so, okay. It's a pre-alert. So when missiles start coming, Israel detects it. They can tell in general where they're heading for, and so they give alerts to large areas. But once it becomes clearer exactly where they're going within, I say, 3 to 5 to 7 minutes, then you get an alarm if it's coming to your area, and you better be in the shelter. Then you have between 30 seconds and a minute and a half, depending on where you actually live. So the pre-alerts gives you a chance to finish taking a shower.
Finish your life shot.
Together, get down, you know, get your shoes on, whatever, if you have to go out for a shelter. So
all right.
That's what it's all about.
I want to bring in some comments from our listeners.
Okay.
Our listeners. That sounded like a radio show. I guess we are on television here.
Viewers.
Our viewers. So this actually comes in from the state of India. Somebody saying hello from Hyderabad. I don't even know how to pronounce that, but somebody is saying hello from India.
Okay, that's nice.
That's the northern part of India. Ethel from a city in Davos City in Philippines is sending her greetings. Jennifer Mallon, who's one of our prayer warriors.
Sure.
Okay.
Oops.
Well, that's a siren.
Got it. So,
all right. Well, that probably does it for us, guys. We should head to the shelter here. So please pray for us. And
we'll be praying for you.
We'll be praying for you. We'll go live again tomorrow, and we've got a lot more to cover. So, well, I guess tomorrow's a Saturday. So
yeah, probably be next week.
Probably Sunday or Monday. All right. Thank you, guys. God bless. We'll see you soon.